She was worth $3 billion. He had $17 in his wallet. The marriage contract said $50 million. His answer? No. Tonight, I'm going to tell you about the most expensive dinner that never should have happened, where a wrong turn led to the right table, and where the richest woman in Manhattan learned that some things can't be bought. This is a story about power, pride, and the moment when everything you've built becomes the cage you're trapped in. Before we begin, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels tonight. Now, let's go back to where it all started. A freezing November evening, one mistake, and two people who were never meant to meet. The rain came down in cold, punishing sheets that November night, turning the streets of Manhattan into rivers of reflected neon and brake lights. Noah Reed stood at the corner of 5th Avenue and 58th Street, squinting at the address scribbled on a crumpled piece of paper in his calloused hand. The ink had started to blur from the moisture, but he could still make out the numbers. 342 East 58th. He looked up at the building in front of him. The brass numbers beside the ornate entrance read 342. This had to be it, except it didn't make sense. The place before him was clearly a high-end restaurant, the kind with a name in cursive gold lettering and a doorman in a burgundy coat who looked like he earned more in tips than Noah made in a week. Through the tall windows, he could see crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, and people dressed like they'd stepped out of a magazine spread. Noah glanced down at his own reflection in the rain-slicked window of a parked Mercedes. Work boots, still dusty from the construction site. Jeans that had seen better days. A flannel shirt under a canvas jacket that was more function than fashion. His dark hair was damp and unruly, and there was still a trace of drywall dust on his collar that he'd missed. This couldn't be right, but Tom, his foreman, had been specific. Meet me at 342 East 58th, 7 o'clock. We'll grab a bite, talk about the supervisor position. It was supposed to be casual. A diner, maybe. A sports bar. Somewhere normal people ate. Not this. Noah checked his phone. 3 missed calls from Tom. All from 2 hours ago. No voicemails. No texts explaining a change of plans. His phone battery blinked at 4%. He'd forgotten to charge it again. The doorman was watching him now, one eyebrow slightly raised. Noah took a breath. Maybe Tom was already inside. Maybe there was a simple explanation. Maybe he'd walked to the wrong entrance and there was actually a casual place around the corner. Or maybe, and this seemed more likely, he'd gotten the address completely wrong and was about to make a complete fool of himself. He walked toward the entrance. The doorman's expression shifted from suspicious to professionally neutral as he opened the door. "Good evening, sir." The warmth hit Noah immediately, along with the scent of something rich and complicated. Wine, herbs, butter, money. A woman in an elegant black dress appeared from nowhere, her smile perfect and practiced. "Welcome to Oriole. Do you have a reservation?" Noah's mouth went dry. I'm supposed to be meeting someone. Tom Martelli?" She glanced down at a leather-bound book, her finger tracing down a list of names. "I don't see a Martelli here this evening, but let me check with the host." She gestured to a man in an immaculate suit standing near a podium. "Jean-Paul?" The host, Jean-Paul apparently, approached with the smooth efficiency of someone who'd spent years perfecting the art of discretion. He was older, gray at the temples, with the kind of bearing that suggested he'd seen everything and been impressed by very little. "Good evening. How may I assist you?" "I'm looking for Tom Martelli," Noah said, feeling acutely aware of every eye in the entrance that had turned his direction. "We were supposed to meet at 7. Jean-Paul's expression didn't change. "Your name, sir?" "Noah. Noah Reed." There was a pause as Jean-Paul consulted his book, then his tablet, then his book again. Noah was about to apologize and leave when the man's expression shifted, just slightly, but noticeably. "Ah, Mr. Reed. Yes, we have you down for 7 o'clock. His eyes flickered over Noah's appearance for just a fraction of a second. "Right this way, please." "Wait, what?" "I think there might be a mistake," Noah started, but Jean-Paul was already walking, moving through the dining room with the expectation that Noah would follow. And because he didn't know what else to do, Noah did. The restaurant was even more intimidating on the inside. The ceiling soared above them, featuring a 4-story wine tower illuminated from within. The tables were set with more silverware than Noah had in his entire apartment. The other diners looked like they belonged in boardrooms and country clubs, tailored suits, designer dresses, jewelry that probably cost more than his truck. Noah felt like an imposter at a royal ball. Jean-Paul led him to a table in a quieter corner, still visible, still elegant, but slightly removed from the main dining area. A small candle flickered in a crystal holder, 2 place settings, 2 menus already waiting. "Your table, Mr. Reed. Your associate will be joining you shortly." "Listen, I think there's been a mix-up. Can I start you with something to drink? Perhaps some wine while you wait?" "Just water is fine, but I really think still or sparkling?" "Still. Thank you." But Jean-Paul was already gone, moving with that same efficient grace toward the kitchen. Noah stood there for a moment, utterly out of his depth. The chair alone probably cost more than his rent. The napkin was folded into some kind of origami swan. The menu had no prices on it, which he'd heard meant they were expensive enough that if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. He should leave. This was clearly a mistake. He'd somehow gotten his wires crossed with someone else's reservation, and when whoever actually belonged at this table showed up, it would be embarrassing for everyone. But then his phone buzzed, 4% battery, and he saw a notification from the video chat app. His daughter, 7 o'clock. He'd promised to call her at 7 to say goodnight. Noah sat down, carefully, like the chair might break under him, and opened the app. The call connected immediately, and suddenly the formal, intimidating restaurant faded into the background as his daughter's face filled the screen. "Daddy!" "Hey, sweetheart." Noah couldn't help but smile, all his anxiety dissolving at the sight of her. Mia was 7 years old, with dark curls that she refused to let anyone brush properly, and eyes that were exactly like her mother's, warm, bright, and entirely too clever. She was wearing her favorite pajamas, the ones with the little dinosaurs. "Where are you? That doesn't look like your apartment." "I'm at a restaurant. Remember I told you I had a meeting tonight? It looks fancy." Mia leaned closer to her screen, trying to see more. "Are there rich people there?" Noah laughed quietly. "Yeah, baby. Very rich people." "Do they have dinosaur nuggets?" "I don't think so." "Then it's not that fancy." God, he loved her. 3 years since Elena had died, and every day Mia reminded him more and more of his late wife, her humor, her logic, her way of cutting through nonsense to what actually mattered. "How was school today?" Mia launched into a detailed explanation of the art project they'd worked on, something involving a lot of glitter and a regrettable incident with glue. Noah listened, nodding and asking questions, temporarily forgetting where he was, until he noticed the woman. She was standing about 10 feet away, perfectly still, watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. And she was striking. That was the word that came to mind, though it felt inadequate. She wore a navy dress that looked like it had been designed specifically for her body, with her dark hair pulled back in a style that was simultaneously casual and impossibly elegant. Her posture was perfect, shoulders back, chin level, the kind of bearing that came from years of expensive education and even more expensive confidence. But it was her eyes that caught him, sharp, intelligent, and in this moment utterly confused. She was looking at the table, at him, at the table again. Noah realized with sinking certainty that this was her table, the real reservation, and he was sitting in her seat. "Mia, sweetie, I need to call you back in just a minute, okay? But you didn't hear about the glue part?" "I know, and I want to hear all about it. I promise. 2 minutes." "You promise? "I promise. I love you." "Love you too, Daddy." The call ended. Noah looked up at the woman, who was now definitely staring at him. He started to stand, his chair scraping slightly against the polished floor. "I'm sorry, I think there's been a mistake." But before he could finish, Jean-Paul appeared again, this time addressing the woman with a slight bow. "Ms. Harrington, your table is ready." Ms. Harrington's gaze didn't leave Noah's face. Up close, he could see that her eyes were an unusual shade of gray-green, like the ocean before a storm. There was something calculating in her expression, but also something else. Curiosity, maybe. She should have corrected Jean-Paul, should have pointed out the obvious error, should have had Noah removed and waited for whoever she was actually supposed to meet. Instead, she did something that surprised both of them. She sat down. "Thank you, Jean-Paul," she said smoothly, her voice carrying the kind of polish that came from years of boardrooms and private schools. "That will be all." Jean-Paul hesitated for just a moment. Professionals like him could sense when the script was being deviated from, but then he nodded and withdrew. Noah remained standing, completely bewildered. "I think there's been a mistake," he said again. "This is clearly your table, and I was waiting for someone else, and I should probably just... Sit down, Mr. Reed." It wasn't a request. It was delivered in the tone of someone who was used to being obeyed. Noah found himself sitting before he'd consciously decided to do so. Claire Harrington, because that's who she was, though Noah didn't know it yet, folded her hands on the table and studied him with the intensity of a scientist examining an unexpected specimen. "You're not Jonathan," she said. "No, I'm Noah, and I'm definitely not supposed to be here." "Neither am I, apparently." She picked up her menu without looking at it, her eyes still fixed on him. And yet here we are. A server appeared, different from before, younger, with the same nervous efficiency, and poured water into their glasses from a bottle that probably cost more than Noah's phone bill. "Can I bring you something from the wine list while you decide?" the server asked. Claire glanced at Noah, one eyebrow raised in a question. "I'm fine with water," Noah said quickly. "2 glasses of the Chateau Margaux 2015, Claire said instead. "And we'll need a few minutes with the menu." The server nodded and disappeared. Noah leaned forward slightly. "I don't think you understand. I literally walked into the wrong restaurant. I was supposed to meet my foreman to talk about a job. I can't afford a glass of wine here. I probably can't afford a glass of water here." "The wine is already ordered. It would be rude to send it back." Claire's expression remained neutral, but there was something in her eyes, a glimmer of amusement maybe, or challenge. "And you're not being asked to pay for it." "I don't accept charity." "It's not charity, it's curiosity." She finally opened her menu, scanning it with the casual air of someone who'd seen 1,000 similar menus. "I was expecting to have dinner with someone incredibly boring. A setup arranged by my board of directors and my father, to be precise. Someone appropriate. Someone suitable. Someone who would spend the entire evening discussing market shares and strategic partnerships." She looked up from the menu. "You, Mr. Reed, are clearly none of those things." "That's accurate. So I'm curious. The universe has presented me with an unexpected alternative to an excruciating evening. Why should I waste it?" Noah didn't know what to say to that. This woman, whoever she was, spoke with the kind of casual confidence that came from a life where things generally went the way she wanted them to. Yet here she was, actively choosing chaos over whatever careful plan had been laid out for her. The wine arrived. The server poured 2 glasses with the ceremonial care usually reserved for religious rituals, then retreated once more. Claire lifted her glass. "To wrong turns." Noah hesitated, then picked up his own glass. The crystal felt impossibly delicate in his work-roughened hands. "To wrong turns," he echoed. The wine was extraordinary, rich and complex and completely wasted on him, if he was being honest. He was more of a beer guy, but he appreciated the gesture, even if he didn't fully understand it. "So," Claire said, setting her glass down precisely in the center of its coaster. "Tell me, Noah Reed, who was meeting his foreman, what do you do? Construction, day labor mostly, drywall, framing, whatever needs doing." He saw no point in dressing it up. "I'm good at it." "I'm sure you are." There was no condescension in her tone. "And the little girl? On your phone?" "My daughter, Mia. She's 7. "You call her every night?" "Every night I can. Sometimes I'm on a site without cell service, but yeah, every night." Something shifted in Claire's expression, softened, almost imperceptibly. "That's nice." "It's necessary." Noah took another sip of wine, feeling the warmth spread through his chest. Her mother died 3 years ago. Cancer. It was fast. 8 months from diagnosis to... He stopped, surprised at himself. He didn't usually talk about Elena to strangers. "Anyway, it's just the 2 of us now, so yeah, I call every night." Claire was quiet for a moment, her fingers tracing the stem of her wine glass. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you. Where's she now? Your daughter?" With my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. She watches Mia when I have to work late, or apparently when I accidentally crash fancy dinners. He smiled slightly. Mia's probably telling her all about the glitter incident right now. Glitter incident? Art class, there was glue involved. The details are apparently quite important. The corner of Claire's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Sounds serious. Life and death, from what I gather. The server returned, ready to take their order. Claire ordered something in French that Noah didn't catch. He glanced down at his menu in mild panic. Nothing had prices, and he had no idea what half these words meant. "I'll have the same," he said, hoping it wasn't something too weird. When the server left, Claire leaned back in her chair, studying him again with that same analytical intensity. "You're not what I expected to find at this table tonight," she said. "Yeah, well, you're not what I expected either." Noah met her gaze directly. "No offense, but you're kind of terrifying." That did get a smile, a real one, quick and genuine. "Good. I've worked very hard to be terrifying." "Why?" The smile faded. "Because in my world, Mr. Reed, anything less than terrifying gets eaten alive." There was something in the way she said it, a weight, a weariness, that made Noah think this wasn't just corporate bravado. This was truth, hard-earned and harder-lived. "What world is that?" he asked. Claire picked up her wine glass again but didn't drink. "The kind where dinner isn't dinner. Where every conversation is a negotiation. Where even your father arranges dates like they're merger proposals." She paused. "The kind where you sometimes wish you could just walk into the wrong restaurant." "Is that what this is? Your version of walking into the wrong restaurant?" "Perhaps." She took a sip of wine, her expression thoughtful. "Or perhaps you walked into the right one." Their first course arrived, something delicate and artfully arranged on white porcelain. Noah watched Claire pick up the correct fork. There were 3 on his side of the plate, and he had no idea which was for what, and followed her lead. The food was incredible. He didn't know what it was exactly, some kind of fish with a sauce that tasted like the ocean had been distilled into liquid silk, but it was like nothing he'd ever eaten. "Good?" Claire asked. "Honestly, I'm kind of afraid to swallow it. Feels like it should be in a museum." She laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that seemed to surprise her as much as it surprised him. "That's the most honest review this place has probably ever received." They ate in companionable silence for a moment. Then Claire set down her fork and fixed him with that penetrating stare again. "Can I ask you something, Noah?" "Sure." "Why did you sit down? When you realized this wasn't your table, why didn't you just leave?" Noah thought about it. "My phone was dying. I needed to call my daughter, and I don't know. I figured I'd wait here for a minute, make the call, then explain the mix-up and find the actual place I was supposed to be." He shrugged. "Then you showed up and things got weird." "Weird," Claire repeated, tasting the word. "Yes, I suppose that's accurate." "Your turn. Why did you sit down? You clearly knew I wasn't whoever you were supposed to meet." Claire was quiet for a long moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer than before. "Because I've spent the last 34 years sitting at the right tables, meeting the right people, saying the right things. And in 34 years, I don't think I've ever had a real conversation, not one that mattered." She met his eyes. "And then I walk in here and find a man in work boots talking to his daughter about glitter, sitting at my table like he has every right to be here, and I thought—" She trailed off. "What?" "I thought maybe just this once I could sit at the wrong table too." The second course arrived, then the third. As the evening unfolded, something strange happened. The awkwardness faded, replaced by an ease that neither of them expected. Claire asked questions about his work, about Mia, about his life in a way that felt genuinely curious rather than politely probing. Noah, in turn, found himself asking about her world. Carefully at first, then with more confidence as she answered with surprising candor. She told him about the company she ran, Harrington Industries, apparently a major player in sustainable technology, though she described it with none of the pride he would have expected. She talked about board meetings that felt like battles, about a father who viewed affection as weakness, about the constant pressure to perform, to prove, to perfect. So this dinner tonight, Noah said, finishing his fourth course, some kind of lamb that melted on his tongue. This was another performance? More than that. An audition. Claire's expression hardened. Jonathan Carmichael. Old money, new degrees, impeccable breeding. He checks every box my board of directors requires for someone who might eventually... She stopped herself. Eventually what? She studied him for a moment, as if calculating how much truth to share. Then she seemed to make a decision. My board believes I should marry someone suitable, someone who can provide stability, heirs, the right connections. Her voice was flat, clinical. Jonathan was candidate number 3. Noah set down his fork. They're arranging your marriage? Like we're in the 1800s? In my world, Noah, we never really left the 1800s. We just got better at pretending. And you're okay with this? I didn't say that. She took a long drink of wine. But what I'm okay with and what I have a choice about aren't always the same thing. Everyone has choices. Do they? There was an edge to her voice now. When your entire life has been built around a company that bears your family name, when thousands of jobs depend on the decisions you make, when walking away means destroying everything 3 generations built. She leaned forward. Tell me, Noah, if choosing what you wanted meant Mia lost her home, her school, her stability, would you still say everyone has choices? He didn't answer immediately. She'd hit a nerve, and she knew it. That's different, he said finally. Is it? Or is it just different degrees of the same cage? They looked at each other across the table. 2 people from completely different worlds, both trapped in their own ways. The server appeared with dessert, something chocolate and architecturally impossible. Noah picked up his spoon, then set it down again. Can I ask you something now? He said. Of course. If you could choose, really choose, with no consequences, what would you want? Claire didn't answer right away. She stared at the dessert in front of her like it held answers she'd been searching for. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know. Isn't that pathetic? 34 years old, running a multi-billion-dollar company, and I don't know what I actually want. She looked up at him. What about you? What do you want? To give Mia a good life, to be a good father, to do work I'm proud of. Noah shrugged. Simple stuff. Simple? Claire echoed, and there was longing in her voice. That sounds nice. They finished dessert in thoughtful silence. The restaurant had gotten quieter. Other diners had left, and the staff was beginning the subtle choreography of closing preparations. Noah glanced at his phone. 9:30. He'd been here for over 2 hours. I should probably go, he said. Need to get back to Mia. Finish that call I promised her. Of course. Claire signaled for the check with a subtle gesture Noah barely caught. Wait, I should at least pay for my half. Don't be ridiculous. She produced a credit card seemingly from nowhere. Black, metal, the kind that had no limit. This evening has been unexpected. The least I can do is cover dinner. I can't let you. You can. And you will. There was that commanding tone again. Consider it payment for the most interesting conversation I've had in years. Jean-Paul appeared with a leather folder. Claire signed without looking at the total, then stood. Noah rose as well, feeling once again acutely aware of how out of place he was. They walked toward the exit together. At the door, Claire turned to him. Thank you, Noah Reed, for the wrong table. Thank you for not having me thrown out. She smiled, a real smile this time, unguarded and warm. If you're ever in the neighborhood again and feel like walking into the wrong restaurant, I'll know where to find you? Perhaps. They stood there for a moment, neither quite ready to end whatever this strange evening had been. Then Claire did something that surprised both of them. She pulled a business card from her clutch and handed it to him. In case you ever want to discuss glitter incidents or anything else. Noah took the card. Heavy stock, embossed lettering. Claire Harrington, CEO, Harrington Industries. And below it, a personal number. I don't usually give that out, she said. I won't use it, Noah replied automatically. No, I don't suppose you will. She sounded almost disappointed. But I hope you might. The doorman held the door open. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and shining under the streetlights. "Good night, Claire." "Good night, Noah." He walked out into the Manhattan night, the business card in his pocket feeling heavier than it should. Behind him, through the window, he could see Claire still standing there, watching him leave with an expression he couldn't quite read. Noah pulled out his phone, 2% battery, and called Mrs. Chen to let her know he was on his way. Then he started the long subway ride back to Queens, back to his real life, back to his daughter and his studio apartment and his work boots that would be waiting by the door in the morning. The whole evening felt like a dream, like he'd stepped through a portal into someone else's life for a few hours, and now he was stepping back into his own. Except for the card in his pocket, and except for the fact that he couldn't stop thinking about her. Meanwhile, back in the restaurant, Claire Harrington stood at the window and watched Noah disappear into the subway station down the street. Jean-Paul approached quietly. "Shall I call your car, Ms. Harrington?" "Not yet." She was still staring at the spot where Noah had vanished. "Jean-Paul, do you believe in fate?" The host considered the question seriously. "I believe we make 1,000 small choices every day, and sometimes those choices surprise us." That's a very diplomatic answer. "I've worked in restaurants for 30 years, Ms. Harrington. I've learned that the most interesting evenings are the ones that don't go according to plan." Claire finally turned away from the window. "I was supposed to meet Jonathan Carmichael tonight." "I know. You gave his table to someone else." "I gave your table to its rightful reservation holder," Jean-Paul said carefully. "Mr. Reed's name was in our system. The reservation was for 7 o'clock. Everything was correct. Except I didn't make a reservation for Mr. Reed." "No, ma'am, but someone did." He paused. "Or perhaps it was simply a glitch in our system. These things happen." They both knew that things like that didn't simply happen at Oriole. The reservation system was managed with the precision of Swiss banking, but neither of them said it out loud. "Where's Jonathan?" Claire asked. "Mr. Carmichael called at 6:45 to confirm his reservation. He arrived at 7:03. I informed him that your table was occupied and offered him our finest alternative seating. He was not pleased." Jean-Paul's expression remained neutral, but there was a glint in his eye. "He left approximately 7 minutes later after making several calls that I believe included your father's number." Claire closed her eyes. "My phone has been on silent." "I suspected as much." "My father is going to be furious." "Yes, ma'am, most likely." She opened her eyes and looked at Jean-Paul, really looked at him. "You knew. You knew I was walking into the wrong table, and you let me do it anyway. I seated you at your reserved table, ma'am. What you chose to do once seated was entirely your decision." "Thank you, Jean-Paul." "You're welcome, Ms. Harrington." He gestured toward the door. "Your car?" "Yes, thank you." As she walked out into the cool November night, Claire pulled out her phone. 17 missed calls. 9 from her father, 6 from board members, 2 from her assistant. She deleted them all without listening. Then she stood on the curb, waiting for her driver, and thought about a man in work boots who talked to his daughter about glitter. Who walked away from the most expensive dinner he'd probably ever seen without asking for anything. Who looked at her like she was just a person, not a title or a net worth. Her phone rang again. Her father. She answered this time. "Claire Elizabeth Harrington, what in God's name were you thinking?" "Hello, Father." "Jonathan called me, said you stood him up, said you were having dinner with some construction worker in flannel." "That's accurate." There was a dangerous pause. "This isn't funny, Claire." "I didn't say it was funny. You asked what happened. I told you." "Do you have any idea what you've done? Jonathan was perfect. His family, his credentials, his complete lack of interest in anything beyond quarterly reports, and his Harvard legacy. This isn't about interest, Claire. This is about stability, about the company, about your future." "My future." She watched her car pull up to the curb. The driver got out to open her door. "Tell me, Father, when does my future actually become mine?" "Don't be dramatic. You know what's at stake here." "I do." "That's the problem." She ended the call and slid into the back seat of the car. The driver, Marcus, who'd been with her for 6 years and knew better than to make small talk when she looked like this, simply pulled away from the curb and headed toward her penthouse in Tribeca. Claire leaned her head against the cool window and thought about wrong tables and right conversations, and the strange, unsettling feeling that she'd just made either the best or worst decision of her life. She still couldn't tell which. Bang. Back in Queens, Noah climbed the 3 flights of stairs to his apartment, exhausted but strangely energized. Mrs. Chen opened the door before he could knock, Mia already in her arms, half asleep. "Daddy," Mia mumbled, reaching for him. He took her carefully, nodding his thanks to Mrs. Chen, who waved away his apologies for being late. "Long meeting?" she asked knowingly. "Something like that. Must have been important. You smell like expensive wine." Noah laughed quietly. "It was complicated." Inside the apartment, he carried Mia to her small room, really just a corner partitioned off with a bookshelf, but she decorated it with drawings and string lights, and she loved it. He tucked her into bed, and her eyes fluttered open. "You promised to call back," she murmured. "I know, sweetie, I'm sorry." "Was the meeting good?" "Yeah, it was good." "Did you get the job?" Noah paused. He'd completely forgotten about Tom, about the supervisor position, about the entire reason he'd gone out tonight. He pulled out his phone, dead now, and made a mental note to charge it and call Tom first thing in the morning. "We'll see, baby. Get some sleep." "Love you, Daddy." "Love you too." He kissed her forehead and watched her drift back to sleep. Then he went to his own room, barely big enough for a bed and a dresser, and pulled out the business card. Claire Harrington. He should throw it away. Whatever that evening had been, it was a moment out of time, a strange, impossible intersection of 2 lives that had no business intersecting. She had her world, he had his, and never the two should meet. But he didn't throw it away. Instead, he put it in his wallet, behind his license, and tried not to think about the way she'd smiled when he made her laugh. Tried not to think about the loneliness he'd seen in her eyes when she talked about her carefully constructed life. Tried not to think about how easy it had been to talk to her, like they'd known each other for years instead of hours. He failed at all of it. 3 days later, Claire sat in her office on the 42nd floor of the Harrington Industries Tower, staring at a contract that would reshape her future. The corner office had views of the entire city, steel and glass and power stretching out in every direction. On her desk, quarterly reports, merger proposals, and a marriage agreement. The contract was elegant as far as contracts went, drawn up by the finest attorneys her father's money could buy. 20 pages of legal language that boiled down to a simple transaction: marry Jonathan Carmichael, produce an heir within 5 years, maintain the public image of a united partnership. In exchange, Jonathan would receive a board position, a generous annual allowance, and the social elevation that came with the Harrington name. No love required, no emotion necessary, just business. Her father had presented it that morning along with an ultimatum: sign or face a vote of no confidence from the board. They'd been patient with her eccentricities, he'd said, patient with her insistence on running the company her way. But patience had limits, and those limits had been reached. She needed to choose. Claire picked up her phone, scrolled through her contacts to a number she hadn't called, and hesitated. This was insane. She knew it was insane. Noah Reed was a construction worker in Queens with a daughter and a life that had nothing to do with mergers or markets or Manhattan penthouses. Calling him would be, inappropriate? Impulsive? Completely out of character for someone who'd built her entire life on careful calculation? Yes. All of the above. She called anyway. It rang 4 times. She was about to hang up when he answered. "Hello?" "Noah, it's Claire. Claire Harrington." A pause. "Claire, hi. I didn't expect to hear from you." "I didn't expect a call." She stood up, walking to the window, looking out at the city. "I have a proposition for you. A business proposition." "Okay." He sounded wary now. "What kind of proposition?" Claire took a breath. This was insane, completely insane. She told him anyway. Noah stood in the middle of a half-finished office building in Midtown, his phone pressed to his ear, wondering if he'd heard correctly. "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" Claire's voice came through crisp and clear despite the sound of jackhammers and power tools around him. "I said I have a business proposition for you. I'd like to meet and discuss it in person." "A business proposition?" Noah gestured to his crew that he needed a minute and walked toward a quieter corner of the construction site. What kind of business would someone like you have with someone like me? That's what I'd like to discuss. Are you free this evening? Yeah, I guess. But Claire, I don't. There's a coffee shop on the corner of Lexington and 42nd. Do you know it? I can find it. 6 o'clock? Noah looked down at his dust-covered work clothes, at the drywall compound under his fingernails. I'll be coming straight from work. That's fine. I'll see you at 6. She hung up before he could ask any more questions. Noah stood there for a long moment, staring at his phone, trying to make sense of what just happened. Around him, the construction site continued its organized chaos. Welders throwing sparks, forklifts moving materials, his crew waiting for him to tell them what to do next. Tom appeared at his elbow, wiping sweat from his forehead with a red bandana. Everything okay? Yeah, I think so. Noah pocketed his phone. Hey, Tom, about the other night. What other night? The dinner meeting? You told me to meet you at that restaurant? Tom frowned. What are you talking about? I never said nothing about dinner. You texted me. Said meet at 342 East 58th at 7. Reed, I don't text. My kids keep trying to teach me, but I can barely work the damn phone. Tom pulled out a flip phone that looked like it was from 2005. Besides, I was home with my wife that night. Anniversary dinner. Why would I schedule a meeting? Noah felt something cold settle in his stomach. You didn't send me to that restaurant? What restaurant? Never mind, forget it. But Noah's mind was racing. If Tom hadn't sent him to Oriole, then who had? The reservation had been in his name. Someone had put his name in their system. Someone had wanted him at that table. The question was why. He tried to focus on work for the rest of the day, but his mind kept drifting back to Claire, to the way she'd looked at him across that candlelit table, to the loneliness in her voice when she talked about her carefully controlled life, to whatever proposition she wanted to discuss that was important enough to track down his number and call him 3 days later. At 5:30, he knocked off early, washed his hands and face in the site bathroom, and tried to make himself presentable. It was a losing battle. The canvas jacket had dried cement on one sleeve. His jeans had seen better days. He still smelled like sawdust and sweat. This was who he was. If Claire Harrington wanted to meet with him, she'd have to accept him as he came. The coffee shop was one of those trendy places with exposed brick and reclaimed wood furniture, where a regular coffee cost $7 and came with a lecture about single-origin beans. Noah ordered a black coffee and found a table near the back, trying not to think about how much the chair probably cost. Claire arrived exactly at 6, and somehow she made walking into a coffee shop look like a power move. She wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than his truck, her hair pulled back in a neat twist. Every head in the place turned to watch her pass, but she didn't seem to notice. Her eyes found Noah immediately, and something in her expression softened, just for a moment, before the professional mask slid back into place. She sat down across from him without ordering anything. Thank you for coming. You made it sound important. It is. She folded her hands on the table, and Noah noticed she wasn't wearing any rings. I need to be direct with you, Noah. I don't have time to be anything else. Okay? My board of directors wants me married. They believe it will provide stability to the company, ensure succession planning, and frankly make me easier to control. Her voice was matter-of-fact, like she was discussing quarterly earnings. They've given me 6 months to find a suitable candidate, or they'll proceed with a vote of no confidence. Noah leaned back in his chair. That's insane. That's business. No, that's control. That's people treating you like a commodity. Welcome to my world. She pulled a thin folder from her briefcase and slid it across the table. I've been presented with several candidates. All of them are from appropriate backgrounds. All of them see marriage as a business transaction. All of them are exactly what the board wants. Noah didn't open the folder. So why are you telling me this? Claire met his eyes, and he saw something there he hadn't seen before. Determination mixed with desperation. Because I have a different idea. A better idea. One that serves my interests rather than theirs. Which is? I want to hire you. The words hung in the air between them. Somewhere in the coffee shop, an espresso machine hissed and gurgled. Someone laughed at a nearby table. Normal sounds in a normal place, while Claire Harrington proposed something completely abnormal. Hire me, Noah repeated slowly. To do what? Build you a deck? To marry me. Noah stared at her, waiting for the punchline, waiting for her to laugh and say she was joking, but Claire's expression remained completely serious. You're not kidding. I'm not kidding. You want to hire me to marry you? Yes. Noah stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Several people looked over. He lowered his voice. That's insane! That's actually insane! Sit down, please. It wasn't a command this time. It was a request. Let me explain. Against his better judgment, Noah sat. Claire leaned forward, her voice low and urgent. The board wants me to marry someone they approve of. Someone who fits their profile, who'll give them more control over how I run the company. But the contract doesn't specify who I have to marry, just that I have to marry someone within 6 months and produce an heir within 5 years. She paused. I choose you. Why me? You don't even know me. I know enough. I know you're honest. I know you're not impressed by money or power. I know you can't be bought or manipulated because you don't want anything from me. She pulled out another sheet of paper. And I know that you need money. Everyone needs money. So I'm offering you $50 million. Noah felt the air leave his lungs. 50... what? $50 million. Paid out over the term of our arrangement. We get married, satisfy the board's requirements, maintain appearances for 3 years. After that, we divorce quietly. You walk away with the full amount, tax-free, set up in a trust that can't be touched. This is insane. This is business. This is fraud. It's a contract. Everything will be legal, notarized, binding. You'll have your own attorneys review it, your own accountants. I'll pay for all of that. Claire's voice remained steady, but Noah could hear the urgency underneath. 3 years of your life, Noah. 3 years of attending some events, taking some photos, playing a role. In exchange, you set up your daughter for life, college fund, trust fund, a house, security, everything. Noah's hands had started shaking. He pressed them flat against the table. I can't believe we're having this conversation. I can't believe I'm in a position to have it, but here we are. She slid the contract closer to him. I'm not asking you to decide right now. I'm asking you to think about it. Read the contract. Ask questions. This isn't romantic, and I'm not pretending it is. This is a business arrangement that benefits both of us. What about what you said the other night? About not knowing what you want? About being tired of performances? Something flickered across Claire's face. Pain, maybe, or regret. What I want and what I can have are two different things. I learned that a long time ago. So you're just going to, what? Hire a husband instead of finding one? I don't have time to find one. I don't have the luxury of romance or courtship or whatever fairy tale you think exists. Her voice hardened. This is the hand I've been dealt, Noah. I'm playing it the best way I know how. Noah stood up again, this time grabbing the folder and the contract. I need to think. Of course. Take your time. You have my number. He started to leave, then turned back. Can I ask you something? Why that night? At the restaurant. If you knew I wasn't your date, why did you sit down? Claire was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd heard it yet. Because for 2 hours, I got to be someone else. Someone who could have a normal conversation over dinner. Someone who didn't have to calculate every word. She looked up at him. And I wanted to see if that person still existed somewhere inside me. Does she? I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm here. Noah left without another word, the contract burning a hole in his jacket pocket. Outside, the evening rush was in full swing. Crowds of people heading home from work, street vendors selling pretzels and hot dogs, taxis honking in an eternal symphony of impatience. Normal city sounds. Normal city life. Nothing about this was normal. He made it 3 blocks before he had to stop and lean against a building, trying to process what just happened. $50 million. 50 million. He couldn't even really comprehend that number. It was more money than he'd make in 10 lifetimes doing construction, more money than he'd ever imagined having, money that could change everything for Mia. He pulled out his phone and called the one person whose judgment he trusted more than his own. She answered on the second ring. Noah? What's wrong? Elena's sister. I need to talk to you. Rachel lived in Brooklyn with her husband and 2 kids. She'd been Elena's big sister, protective and practical and completely no nonsense. After Elena died, Rachel had been there for everything, helping with Mia, talking Noah down from ledges, being the voice of reason when everything felt impossible. "Come over," she said. "I'll make coffee." An hour later, Noah sat at Rachel's kitchen table while her kids did homework in the next room, and her husband Mike made himself scarce. Rachel had read through the contract twice, her expression growing more incredulous with each page. "This is real," she said finally. "This is actually real. I know. She's offering you $50 million to marry her for 3 years. I know." "Noah." Rachel set down the contract and looked at him. "Do you understand what this kind of money would mean?" "Of course I do." "No, I mean really understand. This isn't just about you. This is about Mia's future. College anywhere she wants. No student loans, no debt, a house, security. Everything Elena wanted for her." Noah's throat tightened at the mention of his wife. "Don't." "Don't what? Point out the obvious?" Rachel leaned forward. "Elena died worrying about whether you'd be okay, whether Mia would have what she needed. This could solve all of that. By lying. By pretending. By providing." Rachel's voice softened. "Noah, I love you. You're the best father I know, but how long can you keep doing this, working 12-hour days, barely scraping by, one emergency away from disaster?" "I'm doing fine." "You're surviving. That's not the same thing as being fine." She tapped the contract. "This woman is offering you a chance to do more than survive, to actually build something, and all you have to do is play a role for 3 years. It's not that simple." "Why not?" Noah couldn't answer. How could he explain the knot in his stomach? The feeling that accepting this money would mean betraying something fundamental about who he was? The memory of Elena's voice saying, "You're the most honest man I've ever known," and how that honesty felt like the only thing he had left of her. Rachel watched him struggle, then sighed. "What are you afraid of?" "I don't know." He ran his hands through his hair. "Maybe that I'll take the money and hate myself. Maybe that Mia will grow up thinking that's how the world works. Everything's transactional, nothing's real. Or maybe she'll grow up secure and loved, and able to chase her dreams because her father made a hard choice to give her opportunities he never had." Rachel reached across the table and took his hand. "There's no perfect answer here, Noah. There's just what you can live with." That night, back in his apartment with Mia asleep in the next room, Noah spread the contract out on his kitchen table and read it again. Every clause, every condition, every carefully worded paragraph that spelled out exactly what Claire expected from this arrangement. The financial terms were staggering. $10 million upfront, placed in escrow. The remaining $40 million paid out over 3 years with bonuses for meeting certain milestones, public appearances, charity events, positive press coverage. After 3 years, an amicable divorce with generous ongoing support if there was a child. If there was a child. Noah stopped at that clause, reading it again. The contract specified that they would make reasonable efforts to conceive an heir, but stopped short of requiring it. Claire had built in an out. Both of them had. If no child came, the arrangement would still conclude as planned. He wondered if she'd done that intentionally. If somewhere beneath all that calculated planning, she'd left herself a back door to remain human. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I know this is overwhelming. I know what I'm asking is extraordinary. But I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. And I wouldn't ask you if I didn't believe you were someone who could be trusted with something this important. Think about it, please. C." Noah stared at the message for a long time. Then he got up and went to check on Mia. She was sprawled across her bed, one arm hanging off the side, her hair a dark tangle across the pillow. In sleep, she looked so much like Elena, it hurt. He thought about the conversation they'd had last week, when Mia asked if they could go to the aquarium for her birthday. "We'll see, baby." That means no, doesn't it? It means we'll see. Maybe we can find a cheaper place. The zoo is free on Wednesdays. "I don't want to go to the zoo. I want to see the sharks." She'd been disappointed, but trying not to show it, the way she always did. The way she'd learned to manage her expectations because she understood, even at 7, that they didn't have money for extras. What kind of father let his daughter learn that lesson at 7? Noah pulled out his phone and typed a message before he could second-guess himself. I have questions, a lot of questions. Can we meet again? The response came immediately. Tomorrow? My office, noon? I'll send a car. Noah hesitated, then typed, I'll take the subway. Of course you will. See you tomorrow. The next morning, Noah called in a personal day, the first he'd taken in 6 months, and spent 2 hours getting ready. He didn't have a suit, but he had a clean button-down shirt and his least worn jeans. He shaved carefully, fixed his hair, tried to look like someone who belonged in a billionaire's office. It didn't really work, but it was the best he could do. Harrington Industries occupied floors 40 through 50 of a glass tower in Midtown. The lobby alone was more impressive than most buildings Noah had worked on. Marble floors, a waterfall wall, security guards who looked like they'd been recruited from the Secret Service. He gave his name to the desk. The guard checked his list, made a call, then directed Noah to a private elevator that required a key card to operate. Ms. Harrington is expecting you. 42nd floor. The elevator was absurdly fast, making Noah's ears pop. When the doors opened, he stepped into a reception area that looked like it belonged in a museum. Original art on the walls. Furniture that was probably older than he was. A receptionist who smiled with professional warmth. Mr. Reed, Miss Harrington is ready for you. Right this way. She led him through a maze of offices and conference rooms, past employees who all seemed to move with purpose and efficiency. Everyone he passed looked polished, professional, like they'd been cast for a corporate drama. Claire's office was at the end of a long hallway. The receptionist knocked once, then opened the door. Mr. Reed, ma'am. Thank you, Jennifer. The office was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Manhattan, a desk that could have doubled as a landing strip, and sitting areas that suggested Claire held entire meetings in here. But what struck Noah wasn't the size or the luxury. It was how impersonal it felt. No photos, no mementos, nothing that suggested a human being actually worked here. Claire stood by the windows, backlit by the afternoon sun. She'd traded yesterday's suit for a navy dress and heels that added 3 inches to her height. She looked every inch the billionaire CEO. Thank you for coming, she said, gesturing to a sitting area. Please. They sat in leather chairs that probably cost more than his monthly rent. The assistant appeared with coffee and pastries, then vanished like a ghost. So, Claire said, questions. Noah pulled out a notebook, actual paper, which felt absurdly low-tech in this space. I have about 100 of them. Start anywhere. The money. How do I know it's real? Claire pulled out a tablet, tapped a few times, then turned it to show him. A bank statement, an account with his name on it, and a balance that made Noah's vision blur. $10 million. That's the escrow account. It's already funded. Your attorneys will have access to verify it. If you sign the contract, it becomes yours immediately. She set down the tablet. Next question. What exactly would this look like? Day to day? You'd move into my apartment. We'd maintain separate bedrooms initially, but share common spaces. We'd attend events together, charity galas, company functions, family dinners. We'd be photographed together, interviewed together. To the outside world, we'd be a married couple. And behind closed doors? Whatever we agree to. I'm not asking for romance, Noah. I'm asking for partnership, someone I can trust not to betray me. What about Mia? For the first time, Claire's professional demeanor cracked slightly. Mia would be part of this. There's a bedroom for her in the apartment. Private school tuition is covered. She'd have access to everything. Tutors, activities, whatever she needs. You'd be her stepmother. Legally, yes. Have you ever spent time with a child? No. Noah appreciated the honesty, at least. She's 7. She asks about 1,000,000 questions. She doesn't sit still. She has opinions about everything. I've run board meetings with men who act the same way. Claire's mouth twitched, almost a smile. I think I can handle it. This isn't a joke. I'm not joking. She leaned forward. Noah, I understand this is your daughter's life we're talking about. I understand the weight of that responsibility. I would never ask you to put her in a situation that wasn't safe or healthy. But you'd ask me to lie to her. I'd ask you to give her opportunities she wouldn't otherwise have. How you frame that to her is your decision. Noah made a note in his notebook, though he wasn't sure what he was writing anymore. What happens if one of us wants out? Before the 3 years? There's a termination clause. Either party can exit the contract with 90 days notice. You keep whatever money has already been distributed, prorated for time served. No penalties, no lawsuits. That seems too easy. It's in my interest to make this as clean as possible. Messy divorces destroy value. I'd rather part as friends than enemies. We're not friends. Not yet. Claire picked up her coffee cup, studying him over the rim. But I think we could be. That night at the restaurant, that was real. The conversation we had was real. I think we could build something functional out of that. Functional, Noah repeated. That's what you want? A functional marriage? It's more than most people in my world have. He couldn't argue with that. What about your father, your board? Do they know you're planning this? They know I'm pursuing marriage candidates. They don't know which one I've chosen. That announcement would come after you sign. They'll never accept me. They don't have to accept you. They just have to accept that you're my legal husband. Claire set down her cup. Besides, you underestimate yourself. You're honest, hardworking, devoted to your daughter. Those are qualities even my father can't criticize without looking like a hypocrite. Your father is going to hate me. My father hates everyone. Don't take it personally. Noah stood up, too restless to sit anymore. He walked to the windows, looking out at the city spreading in every direction. From up here, the streets looked like veins, cars like blood cells, people too small to see. I grew up in Queens, he said. My dad worked construction. My mom cleaned houses. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with thin walls and radiators that only worked half the time. He turned to look at Claire. I know what I am. I know where I come from. And I know that your world is not my world. That's precisely why this works. How? Because you're not corrupted by it yet. Because you still have values that can't be purchased. Because when you look at me, you see a person instead of a net worth. She stood as well, moving to stand beside him at the window. I need someone like that, Noah. Someone who can't be bought or manipulated. Someone who'll tell me the truth even when it's inconvenient. They stood there in silence, two people from completely different worlds, looking out at the same city from very different vantage points. I need time, Noah said finally. I need to think about this. Really think about it. How much time? A week. Maybe 2. Claire's jaw tightened. She clearly didn't like waiting, but she nodded. 2 weeks. After that, I'll need an answer. The board is getting impatient. Fair enough. Noah turned to leave, then stopped. Can I ask you something else? Of course. That night at the restaurant. The reservation in my name. That wasn't an accident, was it? Claire's expression remained neutral, but he saw something flicker in her eyes. I don't know what you mean. I think you do. Someone put my name in that system. Someone made sure I'd be at that table when you arrived. He stepped closer. Was it you? Why would I do that? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. Claire held his gaze for a long moment, and Noah saw her calculating, deciding how much truth to share. Finally, she spoke. After you left that night, I thought about you, about our conversation, and I started to wonder what kind of man walks into the wrong restaurant and handles it with that much grace. She paused. So I had someone look into you, find out who you were. And what I found was interesting. A widower, a single father, an honest man trying to do right by his daughter. Another pause. I didn't plan what happened at Oriole, but I did plan what came after. You investigated me. I did my due diligence, the same thing I do with any potential business partner. I'm not a business partner, I'm a person. You're both. That's what makes this complicated. Claire's voice softened slightly. I'm sorry if that feels invasive, but I needed to know if you were someone I could trust. And everything I learned told me you were. Noah shook his head, torn between anger and something else. Flattery, maybe, that she'd thought about him at all. I don't know if that makes this better or worse. It makes it honest, which is more than most business arrangements can claim. He left without another word, his mind spinning. On the elevator ride down, he tried to process everything. The money, the expectations, the strange, impossible offer that would change his life completely, and the fact that Claire Harrington had thought about him enough to track him down and offer him $50 million. That night, Noah sat Mia down after dinner and tried to explain something impossible. Baby, what would you think if Daddy made a really big change? Something that would be different, but maybe good different. Mia looked up from her drawing, currently working on what appeared to be a dinosaur riding a motorcycle. What kind of change? Well, what if we moved to a nicer place? Like a house with a yard? Maybe. Or a really nice apartment with your own room, a real room with a door and everything. Mia's eyes went wide. Really? Maybe. It's complicated. Complicated how? How did he explain this to a 7-year-old? How did he tell her that her father was considering marrying a stranger for money without making it sound exactly as crazy as it was? There's a lady, he started carefully. Someone I met recently, and she needs help with something. And if I help her, we'd have enough money to make things easier, better. What kind of help? Noah took a breath. The kind where we'd live with her, as a family, for a while. Mia set down her crayon. Is she nice? I think so. I don't know her very well yet. Do you love her? The question hit him like a punch. No, baby. It's not like that. Then why would we live with her? Because sometimes grown-ups make agreements, arrangements that help both people. That doesn't make sense. I know, but it might be a good thing. For both of us. Mia studied him with those two wise eyes. Is this about money? Noah felt his throat tighten. Partly. We don't have very much, do we? We have enough. But not enough for the aquarium. He pulled her into his lap, holding her tight. We'll go to the aquarium, baby, I promise. With or without this other thing, we'll figure it out. I don't need a fancy apartment, Daddy. I just need you. And there it was, the knife twisting in his gut, the reminder of what actually mattered. I love you so much, he whispered into her hair. I love you too. That night, after Mia was asleep, Noah's phone rang. Claire. I'm not supposed to call during your thinking time, she said, but I wanted to tell you something. What? I saw you today, after you left. I watched you walk to the subway station, and you stopped on the corner and just stood there for 10 minutes, looking lost. She paused. And I realized I'm asking you to give up something you can't get back. Peace of mind. Certainty about who you are, and I wanted you to know that I understand the weight of that. Noah didn't know what to say. I'm not a good person, Noah. I'm calculating and cold, and I've hurt people to get where I am, but I'm trying to be better. And maybe that starts with being honest about what I'm asking you to sacrifice. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know what you're getting into, not just the money or the contract, but who I actually am. Another pause. And because that night at the restaurant, you said everyone has choices, I'm choosing to be honest with you, even if it costs me. After she hung up, Noah sat in the dark of his tiny apartment and thought about choices, about sacrifice, about the difference between what was right and what was necessary. And he still didn't know which side of that line this decision fell on. The 2 weeks passed in a blur of sleepless nights and endless calculations. Noah had the contract reviewed by 3 different attorneys, all paid for by Claire as promised. Each one told him the same thing. It was airtight, legitimate, and the most financially advantageous agreement they'd ever seen. One lawyer, a woman in her 60s who'd been practicing family law for 40 years, had looked at him over her reading glasses and said simply, "Take it. Whatever moral reservations you have, $50 million will cure them." But that was the problem. Noah wasn't sure they would. He'd run the numbers obsessively. With $50 million, even conservatively invested, he'd never have to work another day in his life. Mia could go to any college in the world. They could travel, see everything Elena had always wanted to see, but never got the chance. He could set up a foundation in her name, help other families dealing with medical debt and loss. The possibilities were endless and overwhelming, and they all hinged on one decision. Could he marry a woman he barely knew for money? Rachel had called him every other day, each time more insistent. You're overthinking this. It's 3 years. People stay in bad relationships for longer than that without getting paid $50 million. Tom at the construction site had noticed his distraction. Whatever's eating at you, Reed, figure it out soon. Can't have you spacing out around heavy machinery. Even Mrs. Chen had picked up on something. "You seem troubled," she'd said when he dropped Mia off one evening. "Big decision?" "The biggest," he'd admitted. "Then take your time. Big decisions made too fast are usually the wrong ones." On day 13, Noah's phone rang at 6 in the morning. He answered groggily, expecting it to be the site foreman. "Mr. Reed, this is Jennifer from Ms. Harrington's office. I'm calling to inform you that Ms. Harrington will be out of town for the next few days on urgent business. She wanted you to know that your deadline is extended until she returns." "Extended until when?" "We're not certain yet. I'll be in touch." The call ended before Noah could ask any questions. He lay there in bed, staring at his ceiling with its water stain that looked like South America, and felt something unexpected: disappointment. He'd been gearing up to give her an answer, had spent the last week preparing himself mentally, and now the deadline had moved. It felt like watching a wave build, getting ready to jump, only to have it dissipate before reaching shore. 3 days later, Noah was working on a residential renovation in Brooklyn when his phone buzzed with a news alert. He almost ignored it. He usually did, but something made him look. The headline made his blood run cold. Harrington Industries CEO faces board. Revolt. Emergency meeting called to discuss leadership change. He clicked through to the article, reading quickly while his crew worked around him. Sources close to Harrington Industries confirm that the board of directors has called an emergency meeting to discuss a vote of no confidence in CEO Claire Harrington. The meeting, scheduled for Friday, comes amid growing concerns about Harrington's leadership and her failure to comply with succession planning requirements set forth by the board 18 months ago. If the vote succeeds, it would effectively remove Harrington from her position as CEO, making her the first Harrington family member to lose control of the company in its 80-year history. Noah read the article 3 times, each time feeling the weight of it more heavily. This was why Claire had left town. The board had moved up their timeline, and she was scrambling to respond, and he was the response she'd been counting on. His phone rang. "Claire." He stepped away from the worksite to answer. "Did you see the news?" Her voice was tight, controlled, but he could hear the stress underneath. "Just now." "The board moved faster than I expected. They're calling the vote for Friday. That gives me less than 48 hours. "Claire, I need an answer, Noah. I know I said you could have more time, but I don't have more time to give. The board wants me to show up to that meeting with a fiancé, or they're voting me out." She took a breath. "So I'm asking, will you help me or not?" Noah closed his eyes. This was it. Decision time. No more Yanqi. No more thinking it over. No more running calculations in his head at 3 in the morning. "I need to meet with you. In person. I'm in Chicago. I can be back in New York by tonight." "Where?" "My apartment. I'll send you the address. 8 o'clock. The address she sent was in Tribeca, in a building Noah had walked past 100 times but never imagined entering. The doorman checked his name against a list, then directed him to a private elevator that required both a key card and a fingerprint scan. "Penthouse level," the doorman said. "Ms. Harrington is expecting you." The elevator opened directly into Claire's apartment, and for a moment Noah just stood there, trying to process what he was seeing. The space was enormous, 3,000 square feet at least, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the Hudson River and the city lights beyond. Everything was pristine, modern, expensive. The furniture looked like it belonged in a design magazine. The art on the walls was museum quality, and it was completely, utterly soulless. There were no photos, no personal touches, no indication that anyone actually lived here beyond the most basic necessities. It was a showroom, not a home. Claire appeared from another room, wearing jeans and a sweater, the most casual he'd ever seen her. Her hair was down, and she looked tired in a way that made her seem more human than the polished CEO he'd met in her office. "Thank you for coming," she gestured to the living room. "Can I get you something to drink?" "I'm fine." They sat on opposite ends of a couch that probably cost more than his truck. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything that hadn't been said. "I have my answer," Noah said finally. Claire's hands tightened on her knees. "Okay. But first, I need to understand something. Why me? Really? You could hire anyone for this, an actor, a model, someone who's trained to play roles, someone from your world who understands how these things work. Why a construction worker from Queens with a 7-year-old daughter? Claire was quiet for a long moment, her eyes fixed on the river beyond the windows. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. Because everyone in my world is playing an angle. Everyone wants something: money, connection, status, power. I can't trust any of them because I never know what their real agenda is. She turned to look at him. But you? That night at the restaurant, you didn't want anything from me. You were just present, honest, real. And I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd had a conversation with someone who wasn't trying to manipulate me or use me or position themselves for some future advantage. So you decided to hire me to manipulate you instead? I decided to hire someone I could trust to be exactly who they are. No hidden agendas, no secret plays for power. She shifted to face him more fully. I need someone who'll tell me the truth, Noah, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because everyone around me lies. My board, my father, my so-called friends. They all tell me what they think I want to hear or what serves their purposes. I need someone who won't do that. You need a moral compass. I need a partner who remembers I'm human. Noah felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't just about satisfying a board requirement or maintaining control of a company. This was about a woman who'd spent so long being treated as an asset that she'd almost forgotten how to be a person. I've thought about your offer, he said. I've run every number, considered every angle, talked to lawyers and accountants and people I trust. And the math makes sense. The contract is solid. The money would change my life and Mia's life in ways I can barely comprehend. But Claire's voice was barely a whisper. But I keep coming back to the same question. What does it cost? Not in money, but in everything else. My integrity, my values. The promise I made to Elena that I'd raise our daughter to know the difference between right and wrong. He leaned forward. I've been poor my whole life, Claire. I know what it's like to count pennies, to choose between paying the electric bill or buying groceries, to tell my daughter we can't afford something she wants. And I've hated every minute of it. Then take the money. Let me finish. Noah's voice was gentle but firm. I've been poor, and it's been hard, but I've never been dishonest. I've never lied about who I am or what I believe in, and I don't know if I can start now, even for $50 million. Claire's face had gone very still. So your answer is no. My answer is, I need you to understand what you're asking. You're not just asking me to play a role or sign a contract. You're asking me to build my daughter's future on a lie, to teach her that everything has a price, including integrity, and I don't know if I can do that. Even if it means she has opportunities you never had. Even then, Noah ran his hands through his hair. My dad used to tell me that the easiest thing in the world is to compromise your values. The hard thing is figuring out how to live without doing it. And maybe I'm a fool for turning down this kind of money, but I can't shake the feeling that if I take it, I lose something I can never get back. Claire stood abruptly and walked to the windows. For a long moment she just stood there, her reflection ghostly in the glass, her shoulders rigid with tension. You're going to say no, she said quietly. After everything, after all of this, you're actually going to say no. I came here to tell you that I can't do this, that I'm sorry, but I can't be what you need. Can't or won't? Does it matter? She spun to face him, and there was something fierce and desperate in her expression. Yes, it matters, because can't means it's impossible, and won't means you're choosing not to. So which is it, Noah? He stood as well, meeting her intensity with his own quiet certainty. Won't. I'm choosing not to. Why? Give me one good reason why you'd turn down $50 million. Because it's not about the money. It was never about the money. He took a step closer. You want someone who'll be honest with you? Fine. Here's honesty. What you're proposing isn't a partnership. It's not even really a marriage. It's a business transaction dressed up in wedding vows, and you're so deep in your corporate world that you can't see how sad that is. Claire's eyes flashed. Don't you dare judge me. You have no idea what my life is like. You're right. I don't. But I know what it looks like from the outside, and it looks lonely. It looks like you've convinced yourself that everything worth having can be bought or negotiated or contracted. And maybe in your world that's true, but it's not true in mine. But so what? You're going to go back to your tiny apartment and your minimum wage job and feel morally superior because you turned down the chance to actually help your daughter? The words were meant to sting, and they did. But Noah didn't flinch. I'm going to go back to my daughter and look her in the eye and know that I didn't sell out everything I believe in. And yeah, maybe that makes me an idiot. Maybe 20 years from now I'll regret this decision, but at least I'll be able to live with myself. You self-righteous. Claire bit off the word, her hands clenched into fists. You have no idea what you're throwing away. I have every idea. That's why it's hard. They stood there, facing each other across her immaculate living room, two people from different worlds who'd almost found a way to bridge the gap. Almost. Claire's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and something in her face changed, hardened, resigned. That's my attorney. The board meeting has been moved up to tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. She looked at Noah. So this is it. This is where you walk away, and I lose everything. Claire, don't. Just don't. She turned back to the window. You should go. Noah wanted to say something, anything to make this better. But what could he say? That he was sorry? That he wished things were different? That in another life, another world, maybe they could have found a real partnership instead of a contractual one? All of it was true, and none of it mattered. He walked to the elevator, pressed the button, and waited. Behind him, he could hear Claire's breathing, careful, controlled, like she was fighting to maintain composure. The elevator doors opened. Noah! He turned. Claire was still facing the window, her reflection visible in the glass. That night at the restaurant, those 2 hours, that was real, wasn't it? It wasn't just me imagining it? It was real, he said quietly. Then why isn't that enough? Because real doesn't mean right. The elevator doors closed and Noah descended back to ground level, back to his world, back to his life. In his pocket, his phone buzzed with a notification. He pulled it out to find a message from Claire. The escrow account will be closed tomorrow. The money was real, even if nothing else was. I'm sorry I wasted your time. Noah stared at the message for a long moment, then deleted it. He walked out into the Tribeca night, past the galleries and boutiques and restaurants he'd never be able to afford, and headed for the subway that would take him back to Queens. He'd just turned down $50 million. He felt sick and relieved and terrified all at once. The next morning, Noah woke early and made Mia her favorite breakfast, chocolate chip pancakes shaped like dinosaurs. She ate them enthusiastically, chattering about the field trip her class was taking next week to the Natural History Museum. Can you come with us? She asked. Some of the other parents are coming. I'll have to check with work, but I'll try. You always try. That usually means no. Noah felt that familiar knife twist in his gut. I know, baby. I'm sorry. It's okay. I know you have to work. She took another bite of pancake. Did you decide about the lady, the one with the nice apartment? He'd almost forgotten he'd mentioned Claire to her. Yeah, I decided. And? And we're staying here, in our apartment. Just the two of us, like always. Mia studied his face with those two perceptive eyes. Are you sad about it? A little bit. Why? How did he explain this? Because sometimes the right choice doesn't feel good. It just feels necessary. I don't understand. I know. Someday you will. He ruffled her hair. Finish your pancakes. You're going to be late for school. After dropping Mia at school, Noah headed to the construction site. He worked hard, focusing on the physical labor, trying not to think about what was happening in a boardroom somewhere in Midtown, trying not to imagine Claire facing down her board of directors alone, without the fiancé she'd needed to prove she was taking their demands seriously. It wasn't his problem anymore. He'd made his choice. Around 11 a.m., Tom called him over to the site office. Reed, you got a visitor. Noah looked up from the wall he was framing, confused. What? Woman in a suit, fancy looking, says she needs to talk to you. Noah's heart jumped. Claire. It had to be Claire. Maybe the board meeting had been canceled. Maybe she was here to make one last pitch, to convince him to change his mind. But when he walked into the makeshift office, it wasn't Claire waiting for him. It was a man in his 60s, silver-haired and imposing, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Noah made in 6 months. He had Claire's eyes, that same calculating intelligence, but none of her warmth. "Mr. Reed, I'm Richard Harrington, Claire's father." Noah felt his defenses go up immediately. "Mr. Harrington, I'll get straight to the point. I know about my daughter's proposal to you, and I know you turned her down. That's between me and Claire. Under normal circumstances, I'd agree, but these aren't normal circumstances." Richard pulled out his phone, tapped a few times, then showed Noah the screen. It was a news article posted 20 minutes ago. Breaking: Claire Harrington steps down as CEO of Harrington Industries. Noah felt like he'd been punched. She resigned? She was given a choice: resign voluntarily or face a vote she was guaranteed to lose. She chose to maintain some dignity. Richard pocketed his phone. "The board meeting ended an hour ago. My daughter is no longer in control of the company her grandfather built." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to understand what you did. My daughter came to you with a solution, admittedly an unconventional one, but a solution nonetheless. You could have helped her maintain control, could have given her the time and stability she needed to outmaneuver the board. Instead, you let your moral superiority get in the way." Noah's jaw tightened. "I made the choice I could live with." "How noble. Meanwhile, my daughter just lost everything." Richard's voice was cold. 3,000 employees are going to lose their jobs when the new CEO restructures. The sustainable technology projects Claire championed will be scrapped in favor of more profitable ventures. Decades of progress will be undone, but at least you get to keep your integrity intact. The words hit harder than Noah wanted to admit. "That's not fair." "Fair?" Richard laughed bitterly. "Nothing about this is fair, Mr. Reed. But you had a chance to make it less unfair, and you chose not to. I hope your principles keep you warm at night." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "For what it's worth, I think Claire was right about you. You're exactly the kind of honest, principled man she needed, which makes it all the more tragic that those same principles destroyed her." After Richard left, Noah stood in the site office for a long time, his hands shaking. Around him, the construction site continued its normal rhythm: hammers pounding, saws buzzing, men calling to each other in English and Spanish. Normal work sounds on a normal day, except nothing felt normal anymore. He pulled out his phone and called the number he'd been trying not to think about. Claire answered on the first ring. "Noah, I just met your father." "I know. I told him not to go see you." "Is it true? Did you resign?" A pause. "Yes." "Claire, Don't apologize. You made your choice. I respect it, even if I don't understand it." Her voice was steady, controlled, professional. "I need to go. There's a lot to handle here." "Wait, where are you?" "Does it matter?" "Just tell me." Another pause. "My office, cleaning out my desk." "I'm coming there." "Noah, there's no point." He hung up before she could finish and told Tom he needed the rest of the day off. He didn't wait for approval, just headed for the subway, still wearing his work clothes, still covered in dust and sweat. The security guard at Harrington Industries looked at him with recognition this time. "Mr. Reed, I'm afraid Mrs. Harrington is no longer—" "I know, I need to see her anyway." "Sir, I can't just let you—" "Then call her. Tell her Noah Reed is here and he's not leaving until she sees him." The guard made the call, spoke quietly into his phone, then looked surprised. "She says to send you up." The elevator ride to the 42nd floor felt longer this time, each floor ticking by with agonizing slowness. When the doors opened, the reception area was different. Boxes stacked everywhere, people moving with the frenetic energy of corporate chaos. Jennifer, the receptionist, looked haggard. "Mr. Reed, she's in her office." The door was open. Inside, Claire stood by those floor-to-ceiling windows, the same position she'd been in last night, looking out at the city that had just chewed her up and spit her out. Her office was half-packed, boxes filled with personal items that Noah hadn't even realized she kept here. She didn't turn when he entered. "You shouldn't have come. Your father ambushed me at my work site." "I know. I'm sorry. He's angry and he's lashing out. Don't take it personally. He said 3,000 people are going to lose their jobs. Probably more. The new CEO is known for aggressive restructuring. Her voice was flat, emotionless. The Sustainable Technology Division will be shuttered within 3 months. Everything I've built for the last 5 years, gone. Noah moved to stand beside her at the window. From up here, the city looked the same as it had 2 weeks ago. But everything else had changed. I didn't know it would be this bad. How could you? I didn't tell you the full extent of what was at stake. She finally turned to look at him, and he saw the exhaustion in her face, the defeat. I was trying to manipulate you with money. I didn't think you'd respond to anything else. What would you have told me? If you thought I'd listen? Claire laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. The truth, that Harrington Industries isn't just a company. It's a legacy, a responsibility, and the only thing I've ever been good at. That losing it doesn't just mean losing power or status. It means failing everyone who believed in me, everyone who trusted me to do better than the generation before. She turned back to the window. But you wouldn't have cared about that either. Why would you? It's not your problem. You're right. It's not my problem. Noah stepped closer. But you are. She looked at him sharply. What? Your father was wrong about one thing. He said my principles destroyed you. But you were already being destroyed, Claire, by a system that treats people like commodities, by a board that cares more about profit margins than human beings, by a world that convinced you the only way to survive was to become as cold and calculating as everyone else. So what? You came here to lecture me? No. I came here to tell you that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I couldn't be what you needed. I'm sorry the world you live in is so broken that my saying no cost you everything. And I'm sorry that I don't have a solution, because I'm just a construction worker from Queens, and this is way beyond anything I understand. Claire's composure finally cracked. Her eyes filled with tears that she blinked back furiously. Then why are you here? Because I couldn't let you think I didn't care. Because that conversation we had at the restaurant was real, and you deserve to know that it mattered, that you matter. He reached out hesitantly, then pulled her into a hug. For a moment she resisted, her body rigid with pride and pain. Then she broke, her arms wrapping around him, her face pressed against his shoulder, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. They stood like that for a long time, two people who'd almost found a way to save each other and failed. Around them the city continued its indifferent business, and life moved forward the way it always did. When Claire finally pulled back, she wiped her eyes and tried to compose herself. I look terrible. You look human. She laughed, a real laugh this time, though still tinged with sadness. I suppose that's something. What happens now? I don't know. The board is installing their own CEO. I'll retain my shares and my seat on the board, but no real power. I'm being paid out my contract, enough money that I'll never have to work again, which somehow makes it worse. She looked around her office. I have to be out of here by the end of the day. Where will you go? I honestly don't know. I've worked here for 12 years, lived in that apartment for 8. Everything in my life has been structured around this company. She met his eyes. I have no idea who I am without it. Noah thought about that, about identity tied to occupation, to purpose, to the structures we build around ourselves. Maybe that's not the worst thing. How do you figure? Because now you get to find out who you are when you're not performing, what you want when nobody's telling you what to want. He squeezed her hand. It's terrifying, but it's also kind of freeing. Says the man who knows exactly who he is. I know who I've had to be. That's not the same thing. Noah smiled. We're both figuring it out, Claire, just in different ways. She looked at him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. I have a question. Okay? That little girl you video called at the restaurant, Mia, would you let me meet her? Noah was surprised. Why? Because you talk about her like she's the center of your universe, and I want to understand what that looks like, what it means to care about someone more than you care about money or power or any of this. She gestured at the office around them. I want to know if I'm capable of that. You are. You just haven't had the chance. Then give me one. Please, let me meet her. Noah considered it. This wasn't part of any contract. There was no money involved, no negotiation, just a woman who'd lost everything asking for a chance to see what actually mattered. Okay, he said finally. There's a park near my apartment. We go there most Saturdays. You could meet us there. This Saturday? This Saturday. Claire nodded, something like relief crossing her face. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. 7-year-olds are brutal judges of character. Good. I could use some honesty. Noah left her there in her office, surrounded by boxes and memories and the ruins of everything she'd built. As he rode the elevator down, he thought about second chances and new beginnings and the strange way life sometimes worked. He'd said no to $50 million, but somehow he'd gained something more valuable, the knowledge that some things couldn't be bought, and some choices, no matter how hard, were worth making, even when they cost everything. Saturday arrived with the kind of crisp autumn weather that made New York feel like the center of the universe. Noah and Mia had claimed their usual spot on the benches near the playground in Astoria Park, where the East River sparkled in the morning sun and the sounds of children playing mixed with the distant hum of traffic on the Triborough Bridge. Mia was showing him her latest drawing, something involving a princess riding a dragon, when Noah spotted Claire walking toward them across the grass. She looked different. Gone was the power suit and the perfectly styled hair. Instead, she wore jeans, a simple cream sweater, and sneakers that looked brand new, like she'd bought them specifically for this occasion. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and she carried herself with less certainty than he'd ever seen. She looked nervous. Is that her? Mia asked, following his gaze. Yeah, that's her. She's pretty. Be nice. I'm always nice. Mia hopped off the bench and stood beside Noah, suddenly shy despite her earlier bravado. Claire reached them and stopped a few feet away, like she wasn't sure how close to come. Hi. Hi, Noah said. Claire, this is Mia. Mia, this is Ms. Harrington. You can call me Claire. She crouched down to be at Mia's eye level, a gesture Noah appreciated. It's nice to meet you, Mia. Your dad has told me a lot about you. Mia studied her with that intense 7-year-old stare that could make adults squirm. He told me about you too. Oh, what did he say? That you needed help with something, but he couldn't help you, and that you were sad about it. Claire glanced up at Noah, who shrugged. He'd tried to explain the situation to Mia as honestly as he could, without going into details about $50 million and contractual marriages. That's true, Claire said to Mia. I was sad, but I'm feeling better now. Because you came to the park? Because your dad is a good person, and good people make you feel better even when things are hard. Mia seemed to accept this logic. Do you want to see my dragon princess? I would love to see your dragon princess. For the next hour, Noah watched something he never expected to see. Claire Harrington sitting cross-legged on a park bench, completely absorbed in a 7-year-old's artistic vision. Mia explained in elaborate detail why the princess needed a dragon instead of a horse, why the dragon was purple instead of green, and why they were flying to a castle made entirely of ice cream. Claire listened to all of it with the same intense focus she probably brought to board meetings, asking questions that showed she was genuinely paying attention. When Mia finished her explanation, Claire pulled out her phone. Can I show you something? She pulled up a photo. A young girl, maybe 10 years old with dark hair and serious eyes, standing in front of an easel holding a paintbrush. Is that you? Mia asked. It is. I used to paint when I was your age. My grandfather gave me that easel for my birthday. What did you paint? Mostly buildings. I thought they were more serious than princesses and dragons. Claire smiled sadly. I wish I'd painted more princesses. It's not too late, Mia said, with the absolute certainty of a child who hadn't yet learned about regret. You could paint them now. Maybe I will. Noah felt something tighten in his chest watching them. Claire had been right to want to meet Mia. His daughter had a way of cutting through pretense and complication to reach the simple truth underneath. And the simple truth was that Claire was lonely, tired, and desperately trying to figure out who she was without the armor she'd worn for so long. After a while, Mia went to play on the swings with some other kids from her school, leaving Noah and Claire alone on the bench. Thank you for this, Claire said quietly, for letting me meet her. She likes you. She's being polite. She was raised well. No, she actually likes you. Trust me, when Mia doesn't like someone, she makes it very clear. Noah watched his daughter pump her legs on the swing, flying higher with each arc. She asked me last week if you were going to be her new mom. Claire went very still. What did you tell her? That it was complicated, that you were a friend who needed help, that sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices. He turned to look at her. I didn't tell her about the money, about any of it. I wouldn't have expected you to. They sat in silence for a moment, watching Mia play. Then Claire spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been thinking about what you said, about not knowing who I am without the company. And? You were right. I spent my entire life being groomed to run Harrington Industries. Every decision, every relationship, every moment was about preparing me for that role. And now that it's gone, she trailed off. I feel like I'm floating, untethered. I wake up in the morning and don't know what I'm supposed to do. What do you want to do? I don't know. That's the problem. She pulled her sweater tighter around herself. Yesterday, I spent 3 hours at my apartment just staring at the walls. I couldn't even decide what to eat for breakfast. It's pathetic. It's not pathetic, it's adjustment. It's failure. No, Noah said firmly. Failure would be giving up. This is just figuring out the next step. Claire looked at him with those intelligent gray-green eyes, and he saw something vulnerable there that made his heart ache. I don't know how to do that. I've always had a plan, a strategy, a clear path forward. Now I have nothing. You have time. You have resources. You have the freedom to choose what comes next. That's what terrifies me. What if I choose wrong? Then you choose again. Noah shifted to face her more fully. Claire, you're not defined by one company or one position. You're smart, capable, driven. You'll find something else that matters. But what if nothing else feels like it matters? Her voice cracked slightly. What if the company was the only thing I was good at? Before Noah could answer, Mia came running over, breathless and excited. Daddy, can Claire come with us to get pizza, please? Noah looked at Claire, raising an eyebrow in question. She looked startled, like she hadn't expected to be invited to continue the afternoon. I don't want to intrude. You're not intruding, Mia said with the blunt honesty of childhood. You look sad and pizza makes everyone feel better. That's what Daddy says. Claire's eyes met Noah's over Mia's head, and he saw the loneliness there, the desperate need for something normal and real. Pizza does make everyone feel better, he said. You should come. They went to Sal's, a tiny pizzeria 3 blocks from Noah's apartment that had been there for 40 years and served the kind of pizza that made tourists weep with joy. The place was packed, as it always was on Saturdays, and they had to wait 20 minutes for a table. While they waited, Mia peppered Claire with questions about everything from her favorite color to whether she'd ever seen a real dragon to what kind of ice cream she liked. Claire answered each question with surprising patience, and Noah noticed she was starting to relax, her shoulders losing some of their tension, her smiles coming more easily. When they finally got a table, wedged into a corner booth with red vinyl seats that had been patched with duct tape, Claire looked around the cramped, noisy restaurant like she'd discovered a new planet. You come here often? She asked Noah. Every Saturday. It's our tradition. The pizza is really good, Mia added seriously. Even better than the fancy places with the weird toppings. I'll take your word for it. They ordered a large pizza with half pepperoni for Mia and half mushroom for the adults. And when it arrived, Claire took her first bite with the same careful attention she probably brought to wine tasting at Michelin-starred restaurants. Her eyes widened. Oh. Told you, Mia said smugly. This is really good, Noah laughed. You sound surprised. I am. I thought the best pizza in the city was at Roberta's in Brooklyn. Roberta's is good if you want to pay $30 for something artisanal. Sal's is good if you want actual pizza. He took another slice. There's a difference. They ate and talked, or mostly Mia talked while Noah and Claire listened. She told Claire about school, about her best friend Emma who could do a handstand, about the field trip to the Natural History Museum that Noah still hadn't figured out if he could attend. Claire listened to all of it with the same focused attention, occasionally asking questions that showed she was genuinely interested. At one point, Mia excused herself to go to the bathroom, leaving Noah and Claire alone at the table. "She's amazing," Claire said softly. "You've done an incredible job with her. I'm just trying not to screw up too badly." "You're doing more than that." Claire picked at a piece of crust on her plate. "She's confident, articulate, kind. She knows she's loved. That's everything. Her mother deserves most of the credit. She was the best of us. Tell me about her, if you don't mind." Noah was surprised by the request, but he found he didn't mind. "We met in college. I was there on scholarship, working 3 jobs to pay for what the scholarship didn't cover. She was pre-med, brilliant, way out of my league. But she saw something in me I didn't even see in myself." He smiled at the memory. "She made me believe I could be more than what I came from." "She sounds wonderful." She was, and when she got sick, Noah had to stop, his throat tightening. "She fought so hard, not for herself, but for Mia. She wanted to see her grow up, wanted to be there for all the moments. When it became clear she wouldn't make it, she made me promise that I'd never let Mia forget her. That I'd tell her stories, show her photos, keep her memory alive." "That's why you can't lie to her," Claire said quietly, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Why you couldn't take my offer. It wasn't just about integrity, it was about the promise you made to your wife." "Partly. Elena always said that the most important thing we could give Mia was honesty. A clear sense of right and wrong, values that couldn't be compromised." He met Claire's eyes. "How could I teach her that while building our future on a lie?" Claire nodded slowly, and he could see her processing this, understanding finally clicking into place. "I'm sorry for putting you in that position, for not understanding what I was really asking. You were desperate. I get it." "That's not an excuse." "No, but it's a reason." Noah reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "And for what it's worth, I think you're brave. Walking away from the company, trying to figure out who you are, that takes courage." "I didn't walk away. I was pushed." "But you're not fighting to get back in. You could be. You have the shares, the name, the connections. You could make their lives hell if you wanted to, but you're not." Claire looked down at their joined hands. "Because maybe you were right. Maybe I need to figure out who I am without all of that. Maybe that's the only way forward." Mia returned then, sliding back into the booth and immediately reaching for another slice of pizza. The conversation shifted back to lighter topics, and by the time they finished eating, the afternoon had stretched into early evening. Outside the restaurant, they stood on the sidewalk in the golden hour light, that magic time when the city seemed to glow from within. "Thank you for today," Claire said, "for letting me be part of this." "You're welcome any time," Noah said, and meant it. "Can you come back next Saturday?" Mia asked, tugging on Claire's hand. "We could go to the park again." Claire looked at Noah, uncertainty in her expression. He nodded. "I'd like that," she said to Mia, "if your dad says it's okay." "It's okay," Noah confirmed. After Claire left, heading back toward the subway station with directions Noah had given her, Mia slipped her hand into his as they walked home. "I like her, Daddy. I noticed. Is she going to be around more?" "I don't know, baby. That's up to her. I hope she is. She seems lonely." Noah looked down at his daughter, marveling once again at her perceptiveness. "Yeah, I think she is." "Then we should be her friends. That's what you do when someone's lonely." If only it were that simple, Noah thought. But maybe it was. Maybe friendship was exactly what Claire needed. Not a contract or an arrangement or a business deal, but genuine human connection with no strings attached. That night, after Mia was asleep, Noah's phone buzzed with a text from Claire. "Thank you for today. I can't remember the last time I laughed that much, or felt that normal. I don't know if I deserve your kindness, but I'm grateful for it." He stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Everyone deserves kindness, especially people who've forgotten what it feels like. See you next Saturday." Over the following week, Saturday afternoons became a routine. Claire would meet them at the park, and they'd spend a few hours together, sometimes playing, sometimes talking, sometimes just sitting in comfortable silence. Then they'd go to Sal's for pizza, and Mia would fill the space with her endless energy and stories. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, Claire began to change. The rigid, controlled CEO veneer cracked and fell away, revealing someone softer underneath. Someone who laughed at Mia's terrible jokes and wasn't afraid to get grass stains on her jeans. Someone who asked Noah for advice about things that had nothing to do with business. What books to read, what movies to watch, how to cook something other than toast. One Saturday in late November, after they'd finished their pizza and Mia had gone to play arcade games in the back of the restaurant, Claire told Noah about the call she'd gotten from her father. He wants me to come to Thanksgiving dinner. Annual family gathering, very formal, very awkward. She stirred her soda with her straw, not drinking it. He says the new CEO will be there. Wants me to make nice, show support, prove I'm not bitter about how things ended. Are you bitter? Furious, but also... She paused. Relieved. Is that terrible? No, it's honest. I keep waiting to feel devastated, to miss it so much I can't function. But mostly I just feel lighter. Like I've been carrying something heavy for so long I forgot what it felt like to put it down. She looked at him. Is that normal? I think you're allowed to feel however you feel. My therapist says the same thing. You're seeing a therapist? Started 2 weeks ago. Turns out having your entire identity stripped away is something professionals recommend talking about. She smiled slightly. She's helpful. Very into mindfulness and self-compassion, which feels weird but also kind of necessary. Good. I'm glad you're taking care of yourself. I'm trying. She took a breath. I wanted to ask you something. The Thanksgiving dinner. Would you and Mia want to come with me as my guests? Noah was surprised. Claire, that's a family event. We'd be intruding. You wouldn't be intruding. You'd be saving me from 3 hours of passive-aggressive small talk and pointed questions about my future. She reached across the table, her hand finding his. Please, I need people there who actually like me for me, not for what I used to be. He thought about it. Thanksgiving at the Harrington estate, because of course they had an estate, would be completely outside his comfort zone, probably outside Mia's too. But Claire was asking, and there was something in her eyes that suggested this mattered more than she was letting on. Okay, he said. We'll come. Relief flooded her face. Thank you. Fair warning, my family is a lot. Can't be worse than my extended family at Christmas. Uncle Joe gets drunk and starts lecturing everyone about conspiracy theories. My uncle does that too, except he's sober and he's talking about market manipulation. She squeezed his hand. This is going to be a disaster. Probably, but we'll get through it together. Thanksgiving arrived cold and gray, with the promise of snow in the air. Noah dressed Mia in her nicest dress, a navy blue thing with white trim that Rachel had bought her for a wedding last year, and put on his only suit, which was slightly too tight in the shoulders and definitely out of style. Claire picked them up in a car service, and Noah tried not to stare at her. She wore a burgundy dress that was elegant without being showy, her hair styled in a way that suggested professional help. She looked beautiful and nervous, and like she was preparing for battle. The Harrington estate was in Connecticut, a 40-minute drive from the city. As they pulled up the long driveway, Mia pressed her face against the window. Daddy, is that a house or a hotel? It's a house, baby. It's huge. The mansion was indeed huge, a sprawling colonial structure that probably had 20 bedrooms and staff quarters and a ballroom. Noah felt severely underdressed just looking at it. Claire noticed his expression. I know, it's excessive. I grew up here and I still think it's too much. Where's your room? 3rd floor, east wing. I haven't been in it since I moved out 12 years ago. My father turned it into a home gym. She said it matter-of-factly, but Noah heard the hurt underneath. They were greeted at the door by staff, actual staff in uniforms, who took their coats and directed them to the drawing room where the family was gathering for pre-dinner drinks. Noah held Mia's hand tightly as they entered a room that looked like it belonged in a museum, full of antique furniture and oil paintings and people who radiated old money. Richard Harrington stood by the fireplace, talking to a man in his 50s who Noah recognized from business news as the new CEO. When Richard spotted Claire, his expression didn't change. Claire, you made it. Father, thank you for the invitation. Claire's voice was cool, professional. I'd like you to meet my guests. This is Noah Reed and his daughter Mia. Richard's eyes swept over them, taking in Noah's too-tight suit and Mia's wide-eyed wonder, and something dismissive flickered across his face. Mr. Reed, the construction worker. Day laborer, actually, Noah said evenly. Nice to meet you, sir. Indeed. Richard turned back to Claire. I'm surprised you brought guests. You said I should bring anyone who makes me happy. They make me happy. It was said as a challenge, and everyone in the room picked up on it. The dinner was exactly as awkward as Claire had predicted. 18 people around a table that could have seated 30, with multiple courses served by silent staff and conversation that felt like a verbal chess match. Noah sat between Claire and an aunt who spent 20 minutes explaining why her son's hedge fund was going to revolutionize investment banking. Mia, to her credit, was perfect. She used the right fork, said please and thank you, and didn't ask uncomfortable questions even when Richard made pointed comments about Claire's recent sabbatical from responsibility. But Noah could feel the tension building in Claire beside him, her shoulders getting tighter with each passive-aggressive comment, each veiled criticism disguised as concern. It finally boiled over during dessert. Richard, 3 glasses of wine in, turned to Claire. So, daughter, what are your plans? Surely you're not going to waste your education and experience doing nothing. I'm not doing nothing. I'm figuring out what I actually want. At 34? Most people figure that out by 25. Most people aren't raised to subsume their entire identity into a family business. The table went quiet. Even the staff paused in their serving. Richard's jaw tightened. Everything I did was to prepare you for success. Everything you did was to prepare me to be you. There's a difference. Claire set down her fork with deliberate care. And I'm tired of pretending that was the same thing as love. Claire, her mother started, but Claire stood up. Thank you for dinner. It was lovely, as always, but I think we should go. Noah stood immediately, helping Mia out of her chair. Richard remained seated, his face flushed with anger or embarrassment, or both. Running away again, he said, just like you ran from the company when things got difficult. Claire turned back, and Noah saw something fierce in her expression. I didn't run from the company. I lost it because I refused to marry a stranger to satisfy a board of misogynists who couldn't accept that a woman could run it better than any man they'd choose. And you know what I learned from that? That I'd rather lose everything than compromise who I am to please people who will never be satisfied anyway. She walked out, and Noah followed with Mia, leaving a table full of shocked silence behind them. In the car on the way back to the city, Claire stared out the window, her jaw clenched. I'm sorry, she said finally. I shouldn't have brought you into that. It was selfish. It wasn't selfish, Noah said. You needed support. That's what friends do. Friends. She turned to look at him. Is that what we are? Aren't we? She smiled, small and sad and genuine. Yeah, I guess we are. Mia, who'd been quiet since they left, spoke up from her seat. Your dad isn't very nice. No, he's not. My grandpa wasn't nice either, Mia said, matter-of-factly. Daddy's dad. He yelled a lot and made Daddy sad. But Daddy says just because someone's family doesn't mean they get to be mean. Claire looked at Noah, surprised. He shrugged. Kids hear things. Might as well teach them to interpret them correctly. That's very wise. Claire reached over and took Mia's hand. Thank you for coming with me today, Mia. You made it much better than it would have been. You're welcome. Next Thanksgiving, you should just come to our place. Daddy makes really good turkey, and we watch movies, and it's way better than fancy dinners. I'd like that, Claire said, and Noah could hear in her voice that she meant it. After they dropped Claire off at her apartment, Mia fell asleep on the subway ride back to Queens, exhausted from the long day. Noah carried her up the 3 flights of stairs to their apartment, tucked her into bed still in her dress because he didn't want to wake her. His phone buzzed as he was making tea. Claire. I canceled the contract, the marriage agreement. I had my lawyers dissolve it completely. I should have done it weeks ago. But I kept thinking maybe I'd need it. Maybe there'd be some way to use it. But tonight made me realize I don't want that life anymore. I don't want any of it. I just wanted you to know. Noah stared at the message for a long time. That contract had represented everything. $50 million, security for Mia, a life free from financial worry. And Claire had just erased it completely, cutting off even the theoretical possibility. He typed back, "Good. You deserve better than a life built on contracts." Her response came quickly. "I'm starting to believe that. Thanks to you." "Thanks to Mia. She's the one who sees through all the bullshit." "She gets that from her father." Noah smiled, then typed, "What are you doing for Christmas?" There was a long pause before she responded. "I don't know. Probably nothing. My family celebrations are usually obligation rather than joy." "Then come spend it with us. Nothing fancy, just dinner and bad Christmas movies and Mia's excitement about presents. But it'll be real." Another pause, longer this time. Then, "I'd love that. Thank you." Noah set down his phone and looked around his tiny apartment. The cramped kitchen, the secondhand furniture, the water stain on the ceiling that still looked like South America. He'd turned down $50 million to keep this life, to stay true to his values, to honor the promise he'd made to Elena. And somehow, in losing everything she'd built, Claire had found her way here too. To friendship, to honesty, to something real that couldn't be bought or negotiated. It wasn't what either of them had planned. But maybe, Noah thought, as he finished his tea and headed to bed, that was exactly the point. Christmas came to Queens with a dusting of snow that turned the streets briefly magical before the plows turned it all to gray slush. Noah spent Christmas Eve morning cleaning the apartment with a thoroughness that made Mia giggle. "Daddy, Claire has seen our place before. You don't have to make it perfect." "I'm not making it perfect. I'm making it presentable." He scrubbed at a stubborn stain on the kitchen counter. "There's a difference." "You're nervous." "I'm not nervous." "You cleaned the bathroom twice." Noah stopped scrubbing and looked at his daughter, who was sitting at their small kitchen table wrapping a present she'd made for Claire. She'd spent the last week working on it in secret, using construction paper and markers and what looked like an entire bottle of glitter. "Okay, maybe I'm a little nervous." "Why?" "It's just Claire." Just Claire. As if a billionaire CEO spending Christmas in their tiny apartment was a normal, everyday occurrence. But Mia was right in a way. Over the past month, Claire had become a regular presence in their lives. She'd come over for dinner twice, helped Mia with a school project about the solar system, and once showed up unannounced with ice cream when Noah mentioned he'd had a rough day at work. She was becoming part of their routine, their orbit, and that was both wonderful and terrifying in ways Noah couldn't fully articulate. The buzzer rang at 3 o'clock, exactly when Claire said she'd arrive. Noah pressed the intercom button. "It's me," Claire's voice crackled through the old speaker. "Come on up, 3rd floor." He opened the apartment door and waited, listening to her footsteps on the stairs. When she appeared on the landing, he almost didn't recognize her. She wore jeans and an oversized sweater, her hair in a simple ponytail, and she carried 2 shopping bags that looked heavy. "Merry Christmas," she said, slightly breathless from the climb. "Merry Christmas. You didn't have to bring anything." "I know, I wanted to." She stepped into the apartment and Noah saw her take it all in. The small artificial tree Mia had decorated with handmade ornaments, the string lights around the windows, the stockings hung on the wall with command hooks because they didn't have a fireplace. "It's perfect," Claire said quietly. "It's small." "It's home." "That makes it perfect." Mia came running from her room, nearly tackling Claire with a hug. "You came." "Of course I came, I promised, didn't I?" Claire hugged her back, and Noah noticed how natural the gesture looked now, how much easier Claire had become with physical affection over the past weeks. "I made you a present," Mia announced, "but you can't open it until tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" "Christmas rule. Presents get opened on Christmas morning, right, Daddy?" "Right," Noah confirmed. "But we do have Christmas Eve traditions too. Hot chocolate, Christmas movies, and dinner." "Hope you're hungry." "Starving, actually. What are we having?" "Nothing fancy. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, simple stuff." "Sounds perfect." They spent the afternoon in the kitchen together, Noah cooking while Claire helped and Mia provided running commentary on everything. Claire turned out to be a terrible cook. She'd burned the green beans twice before Noah gently suggested she focus on setting the table instead, but she laughed about it in a way that suggested she was genuinely enjoying herself despite the failure. I can negotiate billion-dollar contracts, but I can't cook vegetables, she said, shaking her head. That's embarrassing. Different skill sets, Noah said diplomatically. My skill set is increasingly useless in the real world. That's not true. You helped Mia with her solar system project, and it was the best one in her class. Because I'm good at research and presentation. Put me in front of a stove and apparently I'm hopeless. Everyone's good at different things, Mia said wisely. Daddy can't do cartwheels, but I can. That doesn't make him useless. Claire laughed, a real full laugh that made Noah smile. That's a very good point, Mia. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. The tiny kitchen table barely fit 3 people, and they had to navigate around each other to pass dishes, but it felt warm and alive in a way Noah's apartment usually didn't. Claire told stories about disastrous family Christmases from her childhood, and Mia countered with the year Noah had accidentally set the kitchen towel on fire, trying to flambe something he'd seen on a cooking show. You tried to flambe? Claire asked, eyebrows raised. I was trying to impress Mia's kindergarten teacher. We'd been dating for about 2 weeks. What happened? The fire alarm went off, the sprinklers came on, and she decided I was too high risk for a relationship. Claire was laughing so hard she had tears in her eyes. That's the most Noah story I've ever heard. What's that supposed to mean? It means you tried something completely outside your comfort zone because you cared about someone, and when it went badly, you were honest about it instead of making excuses. She wiped her eyes. That's very you. After dinner, they settled on the couch to watch Christmas movies. Mia wedged herself between Noah and Claire, clutching a mug of hot chocolate with marshmallows. They started with Home Alone, which Mia had seen a dozen times but still found hilarious. Halfway through the movie, Noah glanced over to find Claire watching Mia instead of the screen, her expression soft in the glow from the TV. You okay? He asked quietly. She nodded. I was just thinking about my Christmases growing up. They were always so formal. Catered dinners, expensive gifts that someone else had picked out, conversations that felt like performance art. She looked at him. This is the first Christmas I can remember that actually feels like Christmas. Glad we could provide the authentic experience, complete with burned green beans and a too small table. Especially because of those things. She reached across Mia to squeeze his hand. Thank you for including me. By the time the movie ended, Mia was fighting to keep her eyes open. Noah carried her to bed, tucking her in and listening to her sleepy requests for stories about her mother. Tell me about the Christmas when Mommy made the gingerbread house. Noah smiled, settling on the edge of her bed. She spent 3 days on that house, used real icing, candy canes for the pillars, gumdrops for the roof. It was a work of art. And then what happened? And then our neighbor's cat got in through a window we'd left open and ate half of it before we caught him. Mia giggled. Was Mommy mad? She laughed until she cried. Then she made another one, even better than the first. That was your mom. She never let setbacks stop her from trying again. I wish she was here. Noah's throat tightened. Me too, baby. Me too. But I'm glad Claire is here. Is that okay? To be glad about Claire even though I miss Mommy? That's more than okay. Your heart is big enough for both. Loving someone new doesn't mean you love someone else less. Mia thought about this, then nodded. Okay, good night, Daddy. Good night, sweetheart. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. When Noah returned to the living room, he found Claire standing by the window, looking out at the street below where a few people were walking home with last-minute gifts. Is she okay? Claire asked. She's good. She asked about her mother. Does she do that often? Most nights. I tell her stories, show her photos. Elena made me promise to keep her memory alive, and I take that seriously. Claire turned from the window. You're a good father, Noah. The best I've ever seen. I'm just doing what any parent should do. No. Most parents do the bare minimum. You do everything. She moved to sit on the couch, and Noah joined her. Can I ask you something? Sure. When Mia asked about her mother just now, did she mention me? Noah considered lying, protecting Claire from the weight of the question, but he'd promised himself he'd always be honest with her. She said she was glad you were here. Then she asked if it was okay to be glad about you while still missing her mom. Claire's eyes filled with tears. What did you tell her? That her heart was big enough for both. that loving someone new doesn't mean loving someone else less. Do you believe that? The question hung in the air between them, loaded with meaning that went far beyond Mia's innocent wondering. Noah took a breath, knowing his answer mattered more than he could fully understand. Yeah, I do. Claire wiped at her eyes. I never expected this, you know. When I walked into that restaurant and found you at my table, I never imagined it would lead here. To my apartment on Christmas Eve? To feeling like I have a family again, or maybe for the first time. She looked at him, vulnerability written across her face. My parents gave me everything money could buy, but they never gave me this. This feeling of being wanted for who I am, not what I can provide. Claire, let me finish, please. She took his hand, her fingers trembling slightly. The last few months have been the hardest of my life. I lost my company, my identity, everything I thought defined me. And I was terrified I'd have nothing left. But then there was you and Mia, and Saturday afternoons at the park and terrible pizza and conversations that mattered. She squeezed his hand. You saved me, Noah. Both of you, and I don't know how to thank you for that. You don't need to thank us. We're just being your friends. It's more than that, and you know it. She shifted to face him more fully. I'm falling in love with you, with both of you. With this life you've built that's real and honest and everything mine never was. And I know that's probably not what you want to hear, and I know the timing is terrible, but I needed to tell you because I'm tired of not saying what I feel. Noah's heart was pounding. He'd known on some level that this was coming, had felt the shift in their relationship over the past weeks, but hearing it said out loud made it real in a way he wasn't prepared for. Claire, you don't have to say anything. I'm not asking for anything to change. I just needed you to know. She started to pull her hand away, but Noah held on. Stop. Let me talk. He waited until she looked at him. When Elena died, I thought that was it for me. I thought I'd had my chance at love, and I'd lost it, and the best I could hope for was to be a good father and get through each day. I wasn't looking for anything else. I know. That's what makes this so complicated. But then you sat down at that wrong table, and you were this brilliant, terrifying woman who didn't belong in my world at all, and I thought that would be the end of it. One weird night, a strange story to tell later. But you kept showing up. You kept being honest and vulnerable and real, even when it was hard. And somewhere along the way, you became part of my life in a way I didn't plan for. Noah, I'm falling for you too, he said quietly, and it scares the hell out of me because I don't know how this works. You're still figuring out who you are without the company. I'm still figuring out how to be a single father. We're from completely different worlds, and we have no idea if this can actually work. But? Claire's voice was barely a whisper. But I think we should try. Not because of money or contracts or obligation, just because I like who I am when I'm with you, because Mia lights up when you walk in the room, because for the first time since Elena died, I can imagine a future that's about more than just surviving. Claire's tears spilled over, running down her cheeks. Are you sure? Because I come with a lot of baggage, a complicated family, a public profile, board meetings I still have to attend even though I'm not CEO anymore. It's not going to be simple. Nothing worth having is simple. Noah reached up and wiped away her tears with his thumb. But I think we can figure it out, if we're honest with each other. If we take it slow and don't try to force it into something it's not. Slow. I can do slow. She laughed through her tears. That's new for me. I usually try to solve everything immediately.